إن الحمد لله تعالى نحمده ونستعين به ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله تعالى من شرور أنفسنا وسيئات أعمالنا. من يهده الله تعالى فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له، وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له، وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ونبيه ورسوله. يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون. يا أيها الناس اتقوا ربكم الذي خلقكم من نفس واحدة وخلق منها زوجها وبث منهما رجالا كثيرا ونساء، واتقوا الله الذي تساءلون به والأرحام إن الله كان عليكم رقيبا. يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله وقولوا قولا سديدا يصلح لكم أعمالكم ويغفر لكم ذنوبكم، ومن يطع الله ورسوله فقد فاز فوزا عظيما. All praise and glory be to Allah. We thank Him and we seek His help and His guidance and His pleasure and His forgiveness. And we seek refuge with Allah from the evil whispers within ourselves and the consequences of our evil deeds. For whomever Allah guides, none can ever lead astray. And whomever Allah Azza wa Jal leads astray, none can ever guide. And we testify that no one is worthy of our worship but Allah and Allah alone, without any partners. And that the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam was indeed His Prophet and His servant and His messenger. May the peace and blessings of Allah be upon our Messenger Muhammad and his family and his companions and all those who tread his path, and allow us by his mercy to be among those who tread his path. Allahumma ameen. I remind myself and you with the taqwa of Allah Azza wa Jal, for Allah will accept nothing less than it, and only reward for it, and only have mercy on its people. May Allah make us and you of its people. There is a passage at the beginning of Surah Al-Shu'ara that always confused me as a young man. When I first I had a tape of Surah Al-Shu'ara that would constantly be playing in one of my first cars as a teenager. In this conversation at the beginning of Al-Shu'ara between Musa alayhi salam and between Fir'aun, there seems to be a disconnect, or it is a subtle disjointedness, disconnectedness that appears to exist in the conversation. So Musa alayhi salam comes to Fir'aun and calls him to the worship of the one true God, the creator of the heavens and the earth. And so Allah Azza wa Jal says, قَالَ فِرْعَوْنُ وَمَا رَبُّ الْعَالَمِينَ. Fir'aun, who says, أَنَا رَبُّكُمُ الْأَعْلَى, I am the Rabb, I am the Lord Most High. Musa is saying, absolutely not. You need to worship the real Lord, the real Most High. So he says to him, and who is the Lord of the world that you call me to? قَالَ رَبُّ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ وَمَا بَيْنَهُمَا إِن كُنتُم مُوقِنِينَ. He says to him, He is the Lord, the Master of the heavens and the earth, and everything between them, إِن كُنتُم مُوقِنِينَ, if you were just certain about this. So far, this is a response to a question, very straightforward, it's connected. But then Fir'aun tries to disconnect from the conversation, but Musa does not. And so they're speaking almost in two different narratives. This is the part that I was looking for a connection. What is the wisdom in Musa alayhi salam responding in this way when it has nothing to do with what Fir'aun is saying? But that was entirely wisdom, as you will see. So Fir'aun says after that, قَالَ لِمَنْ حَوْلَهُ أَلَا تَسْتَمِعُونَ. He basically aborts the conversation. He turns around to the other people around him, Allah says, and he says, أَلَا تَسْتَمِعُونَ. You hear this guy? And so Musa alayhi salam, he responds to this and he says, قَالَ رَبُّكُمْ وَرَبُّ آبَائِكُمُ الْأَوَّلِينَ. He is the Lord of your fathers and your ancestors, the foremost of them, your ancient ancestors. He doesn't address this attack on his character at this point. And then Fir'aun continues in response to say, قَالَ إِنَّ رَسُولَكُمُ الَّذِي أُرْسِلَ إِلَيْكُمْ لَمَجْنُونَ. He says, this messenger that was sent to you guys, who claims to be sent to you guys, O Banu Israel, لَمَجْنُونَ. He is crazy. He's out of his mind. He's insane. And so Musa alayhi salam says, قَالَ رَبُّ الْمَشْرِقِ وَالْمَغْرِبِ وَمَا بَيْنَهُمَا إِن كُنتُمْ تَعْقِلُونَ. He is the Lord of the east and the west, and everything between them, if you would but use your reason. Different answers compared to what Fir'aun is saying. You'd think it would be a one for one, but it's not. Fir'aun chose to go the personal attacks route And Fir'aun and Musa alayhi salam would not be deterred by that from his message. And that is the epitome of wisdom, that you not allow someone to dictate what the conversation will say when that will not be useful for the conversation. What is the point at this level of the conversation of speaking about the oneness of the Lord of the worlds, of defending myself personally any further? I already have established my innocence and all of that from the killing that took place years back. After that, I'm discussing this. No one will remove me to an inferior discussion. And I was reminded about this conversation because last week I heard one of the great thought leaders in the Muslim community, Dr. Sherman Jackson. He said this whole conversation of race that's happening in America today, and others have said this as well, he's relaying their words. Toni Morrison was the first to say this. He says this is a whole distraction. When people come and force you to answer questions that has been happening to the African American community for 100 years now. Why do you behave like this? Why do you behave like that? A long time ago it was, why do you look like this? Why do you exist this way? And so when they tell them that you are biologically inferior, this was said, a huge segment of African American thought was consumed with what? Proving that there actually is no biological difference between. You become scientists to prove that we're actually just as human as you are. As sad as that is. That's a distraction. Because that's not anything but one of an endless list of questions that will continue to happen. When they say, why have you never contributed to human civilization? They start developing new poets and new artists and new people in that genre to show that we actually do have these amongst us. Why are you and so they just continue to be a captive of the question. They sold the world that question, the question of racism, or even apparent racism, for those that don't believe it's racism, as if it's somehow justified, and the conversation never moved beyond that. It never remained focused. You know what this is like? This is like the Muslim community. Especially since 9/11, for the past 20 years, as Dr. Jackson was saying, we were so bent on answering the questions about why we appear so violent, responding to the accusation of terrorism, and proving what Islam isn't, that we never got focused on actually telling the people what Islam is. If you ask the average person on the street, what are Muslims? They're going to tell you they're terrorists, or they're going to tell you they're not terrorists, it's propaganda. No one will tell you that Muslims, more than anything else, are people that believe in the one true God, no partners, no associates, nothing at all. Because our narrative, our discussion was dictated by the questions of the critics about us. And the Quran teaches us to not be captives of that question, and not be captives of people's distractions from that question. Ibrahim alayhi salam also, he did the same thing. When he went to the tyrant, when he went to Nimrud, he said to him, Inna Rabbi alladhi yuhyi wa yumeet. My Lord is the one that gives life and takes life. So meaning, he is the one posing the questions. Why are you not submitting to him? And so the king tried to distract from the question. He said what? Ana uhyi wa umeet. I give life and I take life. And the historian said that what he did is he took two men out of his prison cells, his dungeons, he released one, I gave him life, and I executed the other, I took away his life. See? What did Ibrahim alayhi salam do? He was not distracted by this. He insisted to own the conversation. He moved right along with his explanation and said, إن الله يأتي بالمشرق إن الله يأتي بالشمس من المشرق فأتي بها من المغرب. My Lord brings the sun out of the east. Allah brings the sun out of the east, so bring it out of the west. فبهت الذي كفر. And the disbeliever was stranded at that point. He was stumped. And so it is a great opportunity when we find people having a certain conversation to ask ourselves, should we be responding to this conversation, or should we be starting a superior conversation? You know, Malcolm X rahimahullah, just in the spirit of the discussion on race, he realized after years of his life, when he realized the reality of Islam, he realized that he was a captive of the conversation of white supremacy. And so his answer to it was black supremacy. It was still dictated by the conversation until he realized that the real answer is not a response to this, not an equal and opposite, tit for tat. He said, in reality, what we're supposed to be focusing on is God's supremacy. Allah is the greatest, one God, one most great, and we are one family under Him. That is the way you break out of the captivity of the questions that are posed by society, either verbally or just by the trends in society. What is the Quran telling us to be talking about? How does the Quran frame our worldview? May Allah help us own the questions in a way that will move us forward and our communities. Allahumma ameen. أقول قولي هذا واستغفر الله العظيم لي ولكم. الحمد لله وحده والصلاة والسلام على من لا نبي بعد أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ونبيه ورسوله. They say that a good salesman is the one that asks the right questions. So he doesn't ask you whether you want to buy the copy machine or not. He says, do you want the copy machine on the second floor or on the third floor? It's already a given that you're going to buy my product. And so likewise, when we even see politics and the conversation will get louder and louder with it being an election year, do you want this or do you want that? Don't be duped as if those are the only two options. Deconstruct that false dichotomy, that limitation of only two choices. We have a very unique thing to offer. We have a third option that we need to lift our head with to the world, that doesn't see the world through a secular lens whatsoever. Because they are, in a sense, two sides of the same coin. We have a very, very, very different origin of where we stem from in terms of how we understand the world, how we understand priorities, how do we understand the source of all ills that society faces, all of that. And those who understand the Quran understand that. And those who gravitate away from the Quran, drift away from the Quran, will not understand that. You know, some of our greatest scholars, though we don't have much time to speak about this now, they made great headway in telling people about the reality of this deen by adopting that ownership of the question mentality. When Abu Bakr al-Baqillani rahimahullah was invited to basically defend his religion, it was supposed to be a religious debate between some of the high bishops of Christianity at the time. They invited him in, ready to interrogate him about his religion. And he knew this. And they knew that he would not go down easy. And so even from the beginning of the conversation, when people enter upon these bishops and these high priests, they used to bow to them. So what they did to try to break him early, they lowered the door of the room, the conference room, the debate chamber, if you will. So he would have to enter with his head lowered to the priest. And he was aware of this, and what he did very intelligently is that he turned around and he backed into the room. So he entered into the room with his back first. And then he went to the priest before the conversation and he said to him in front of everyone, how are you? I hope things are well. How are the wife and kids? To the end of it. He got straight to work, but the priest didn't realize he was going straight to work. He said to him, you come to debate me about my religion. You come to defend your religion. And you don't know the ABCs of our faith. That we are men of God, we are married to God, we are above having a wife and child. He said, then I refuse to debate you. He owned the conversation from the beginning. He said to him, you hold yourself above having a wife and child, but you don't deem God above having a child, above having a wife, above having partners, above having a board of trustees or associates. And so he refused to debate him, or he debated him a bit further, but he owned the debate from the beginning. Because he broke out of that shell. He deconstructed that shell that was built for him to lose the conversation. And similarly, and finally I'll end it, was said that Abu Hanifa rahimahullah was asked by a man to debate him on what proof actually exists on God's existence. How can we actually prove that God exists? A skeptic of his time. And this is something that's very relevant because many a times we are asked for proof about God's existence. Can you explain God in a way that's convincing? And that question already puts you in the interrogation seat. Because Allah really, in reality, is the explanation for us. We are not the explanation for Him. We all know that He must be. His existence is necessary, subhanahu wa ta'ala. But Abu Hanifa, rahimahullah, he did it in a more creative way. He said, all right, I'll respond to your criticisms, I'll respond to your questions. And they set an appointment, and when he came for the debate, Abu Hanifa, rahimahullah, said, I apologize, it's just that when I wanted to come to you, there was a river between us, I couldn't get across. But luckily, suddenly, a tree fell all by itself and was carved out into like a little boat, a canoe all by itself, and I was able to get to you just in time. The man said to him, you're lying, you're crazy. Expect me to believe that happened out of nowhere? He said, then I refuse to debate you, because you cannot believe a canoe was constructed all by of itself, and you want to ask questions about the existence of a God without which this universe would have had to come all by itself. And so this is the product of the mentality of the Quran, to know where you stand and what questions you should be asking people. Not just the questions that would lock you into a conversation that already sets as a given something we cannot believe, something we cannot stand for, something we can never accept as truth. So may Allah enlighten us and open our eyes and our minds with His book, make us people who get our facts from His book, and understand the world through the tools that were given to us through His glorious book. Allahumma ameen. Allahumma allimna ma yanfa'una wanfa'na bima 'allamtana وزدنا علما يا ربنا. اللهم إنا نعوذ بك من علم لا ينفع وقلب لا يخشع ونفس لا تشبع ودعاء لا يستجاب له. اللهم اجعل القرآن ربيع قلوبنا ونور صدورنا وجلاء أحزاننا وذهاب همومنا. اللهم اغفر للمسلمين والمسلمات والمؤمنين والمؤمنات الأحياء منهم وارحم اللهم الأموات. وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين.
الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا